Well, see, we're gonna be talking about JD Vance trying to clean up his Get Ready's comment. Basically, he was commenting that some people in Democratic Party do not have children, and it's a bad thing, and it's a anti-American thing that when you don't have children. Yeah, it's very stupid. So we're gonna watch it. Maybe I'm gonna make some comments, maybe not. We'll see. Maybe I'm gonna make this a video, maybe not. It depends just how much commentary I'm gonna be able to provide. Doubles downs on policies. Yeah, he was also proposing to tax more people who don't have children, which is simply dumb. A lot of people simply cannot afford to have a children because their living standard would drop. They would have to invest into their children, and they would have to live from wage to wage, which is not really nice or healthy way of living. So let's watch this video.
Vance adding more fuel to the fire tonight, doubling down on his remarks about childless cat ladies.
Obviously, it was a sarcastic comment. I've got nothing against cats. I've got nothing against dogs. I've got one dog at home, and I love him, Megan. But look.
Of course, it was a sarcastic comment. Sure, bro. Sure. Yep, definitely sarcastic, huh? I could sense that sarcasm a miles away.
This is not, people are focusing so much on the sarcasm and not on the substance of what I actually said. And the substance of what I said, Megan, I'm sorry, it's true. It is true that we become anti-family. It is true that the left has become anti-child.
Joanna Coles joins.
The left has not become anti-child. People simply cannot afford having more children. And if your logic actually worked, then there would be much or many more Republicans than there are Democrats. And there isn't more Republicans than there's Democrats. So already this point is a complete bullshit. If the Democrats were so anti-family, then how come they don't have a majority? Oh yeah, they're gonna argue that they let in millions upon millions of immigrants who vote for them. Yes, that's true to some extent. And then to some extent, didn't Trump in Florida with a big percentage of Latino voters? And from what I know, Latino voters, are probably the biggest majority that comes to America now, don't they? And the Republicans have quite a bit of Latino voters, if I remember correctly. Or at least they do have in Florida. So already this is a very inaccurate claim.
The table. She's the chief content officer at the Daily Beast. Joanna, welcome. Childless cat ladies, and that cleanup, what did you make of it?
Where do we begin with JD Vance? I do think there is a moment now. The internet is so full of memes about him. Everybody is laughing at him. I actually wonder if he's now, if we can have the conversation, is he the Sarah Palin of this campaign? It's very difficult to get back from the levels of humor now being created about him. And this, the Democrats' response that he's weird, he is weird. And that only works if someone's weird.
Also, as other people had already pointed out, this is a great response from the Democrats to this. Yeah, call him weird. That is the best goddamn response in an elections you can give out. You can call him a psychopath, you can call him a Nazi, a lunatic. However, that is not going to attract you voters. That is not going to convince his voters for actually thinking about if they want to give it to JD Vance as a VP, or Trump Vance more specifically, because you cannot vote for a VP. You vote for both of them, but hey. Point still stands. Going in beard is such a good move. Because yes, what he said, and sometimes the things he does, even some commercials, are weird. And that is the correct way to address it. It is weird, and as long as you keep going this weird and do not go into some harsher terms like a psychopath or lunatic, you're probably gonna earn a lot of voters, a lot of swing voters. Because people are tired of the left and right calling themselves fascists, communists, Marxists, Nazis, fascists, more fascists, woke radicals, and whatever else. Average voter is tired of it. So when he hears that JD Vance is weird, he's actually going to listen to that. He's actually gonna think, maybe there's a point in it. However, if they were to call him a Nazi, he would be like, I mean, I've been kind of hearing this for about how many years? 8 years? Who knows how many years? The average voter is probably not going to care that much. So this was a very good move to actually call him weird and not some sort of like Nazi or anything like that.
Say you're weird or you're weird. It doesn't, well, you're a little weird, but it doesn't really work. It works with him because he's a little strange. He's a little off. Yeah. And I think it's sort of fascinating. Okay. And his doubling down on it is crazy.
Of it all is really interesting because there was something impetuous about the Sarah Palin decision, right? That actually really hurt John McCain.
But not at first.
No, it actually energized his
Okay.
ticket at first, right?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Talk about sugar high. That was the sugar high.
Very brief.
But all it took was an interview or two, and then it all came crashing down.
Well, and it took Tina Fey too. Remember when she
That's
did
true,
the
yeah.
imitation of I Can See Russia from My House, and then suddenly the whole nation realized she was not ready to be vice president.
And the vetting
it crashed the campaign.
The vetting process didn't really happen too much with Sarah Palin's very infamous for that. I think we might see something a little bit with J.D. Vance that is similar right now.
I'm gonna check something real quick. USA election, not presidential. 2008 it was, I believe. Oh yeah, his running mate was indeed a woman. I always forget about this, so... So they were talking about Sarah Palin, and I was like, who the hell is it? And then they mentioned John McCain, and I realized, oh, he ran for the president. I was like, he had a woman as a running mate, so that was... So I guess she also said something strange or weird, which maybe hurt his chance. Because, I mean, yeah, Obama won with ease. I mean, let's face it, like 10 million vote difference. And electoral vote, I mean, he also dominated him. Although I would probably expected this to be a little even higher, honestly. Probably somewhere closer to 150. So let's continue with the video.
Two pieces already in Politico and Axios at the very least that have the Republican knives are coming out already.
Yeah, let me play some of that. This is from two kind of strong voices on the right talking about the J.D. Vance pick.
Speaking of errors that Republicans are going to have to avoid. So, J.D. Vance is the vice presidential nominee for President Trump. Now, if you had a time machine, if you go back 2 weeks, would he have picked J.D. Vance again? I doubt it.
The attacks on her personally, on whatever her past personally may have been, or calling her a childless lady, none of those are going to work, and they're going to make women second-guess their support for what they may have felt for Donald Trump. Bad move.
Matt, I interrupted you, but...
J.D. Vance ran worse in Ohio than any Republican by a lot.
Yeah.
If you think about it, he's been palling around with a kind of neo-reactionary Peter Thielite rights. The other person who...
Yep, he performed but he only won because he was endorsed by Trump, by the way. Like, he was nowhere near close to actually being the candidate for the final vote, but Trump endorsed him, so he got to the finals and was elected, even though it wasn't a good victory for a Ohio senator. And as I said before, yeah, he is a bad choice. He's a bad pick. Like, absolutely. Like, his only positive is his age. And the comments that are searching about him, the comments he made, especially about women. They are only going to prop up more women to actually vote for Harris. So already, like, J.D. Vance is kind of, yeah, he's kind of causing Donald to burn a little bit. So I mean, Donald is going to have to try now even more to actually get to his win, despite actually getting shot. Like, honestly, a lot of people thought like this is a GG well played. Then all he had to do was to pick somebody who could get more connected with the American people. There's a lot of immigrants or migrants, so you may pick somebody like Vivek. Obviously, he would probably not fare that well with the hardcore Republican voters. However, the hardcore Republican voters will vote for Trump. Trump is on that little paper so they will vote for him. Vivek would attract some new people, that's for sure. Or Nikki Haley, that would be probably even better. Once again, Trump did not even bother to debate her. Probably does not like her. Maybe maybe they probably don't like each other. However, I think Nikki Haley would manage to work with Trump. I think she would handle to work with Trump because, hey, like she probably also wants Republican to win. And she would be able to connect with women much better than J.D. Vance currently is, that's for sure. Well, maybe she would have her own Sarah Palin moment or whatever. I'm not sure what Sarah Palin has said that they were mentioning it. Like I said, I'm not that much versed in presidential election before 2012. Like, I'm only versed in 2016 election, 2020, and 2024. Anything other for me is antique, is archaic. Let's continue.
Who did that and received a ton of money, like 8 figures. The other person who did that the last senatorial go-round was Blake Masters in Arizona.
Who,
Blake
by the way,
Masters,
defended the childless cat lady.
of course he did, because Blake Masters is a weirdo. Even weirder than I am. You can't win a Republican Senate seat in Arizona. You're doing something wrong. There is this little world of 2 online kind of edgelordy, we're against the Enlightenment, har type of people that Peter Thiel and others have been palling around with for a long time, Curtis Yarvin and so on. J.D. Vance is kind of new to that world. He's been kind of playing around, and they love to edgelord and go to the edge. There is so much out there that he has said that is nonsense that he's going to have to wear. That's a lot worse than cat ladies, and it's a lot worse than some of the things that people are making up about him.
But I think I can sort of put a finer point on weird, if I may. He's sort of doing like a Duolingo version of what he thinks Republicans want to hear, and it sounds lost in translation. Like, the child.
Indeed, he does says what hardline Republicans want to hear, and that's the problem. He's saying what the hardline Republicans want. However, the general populace, the undecided voters, the Democrats, don't want this at all, because hardline Republicans are influenced by religion, by Christianity, and that is not good. Religion and politics should never interfere. Never. People will argue, oh no, they are only for the traditional family and stuff like that. Do not let them fool you. No, they are not. They are for something more than that. They are for something more than that, and I've read that in Project 2025. Yeah, one of the reasons why America is in such struggle is because people have lost faith in God. Does this sound to you like the religion is not influencing? For God's sake, religion has zero influence on how the state works, or should have. My country is one of the most atheistic countries on the planet Earth, and our economy and our nation is doing very well. Well, not really anymore after COVID. Let's just say our deficits are a little bit high. Yeah, maybe it's gonna change, maybe not. However, well, if the populists are gonna take over, then it's going to be interesting. And it's going to be interesting whether the populists will actually keep, the deficit low, or they're gonna try to keep it low, or if they're gonna go for bazooka, spend more, to make the population who voted for them happier, which is the likely case, but who knows.
Childless thing would still be weird, but it would work if there was an existing sort of idea of this in conservative circles. An idea that people should have more kids, and if you don't have kids, you're evil and you don't get a voice. That's actually not a thing.
That you should be penalized.
You should be
by
punished.
The tax code.
That's not real. I mean, there's
children.
plenty of scholarship around declining population and declining birth rates. That's not really what he's talking about. He's talking about punishing people who don't currently have kids, and that's
Yep.
That doesn't exist inside conservative orthodoxy. So he's not hitting on something that voters are already thinking. It just sounds off, like he's almost saying the thing that would be red meat, but he's not. And so it sounds bizarre, and we don't even know who it's appealing to.
But I mean, it's also like it's not just weird, but
it's appealing to the Christians, the Christian radicals, who would love to force your women to have multiple children so that their economy, their magnanimous, their bombastic plans, their bombastic proposals would actually work, and that is the only way how it would work, by forcing women to have more children. And by forcing, I mean actually forcing. Push it as far as actually take away their liberties and put her in some sort of breeding camps. Like, I would not be surprised at all, because they are quite anti-immigration. They don't want illegal migration, which is, I can sort of get behind that. However, if people run away from war, like, you simply have to help them. Like we help the Ukrainians. Like, can you imagine if we simply closed the borders for millions of Ukrainians? Like, there would be millions of them dying because of sudden, population bursts near these borders. Like, that would be really, really bad and really messy. Like, when somebody is running from the war and is genuine, like, you should help him. If somebody has nefarious reasons, such people obviously come in, like, let's not beat around the bush. Well, you identify the problem and you deport it, or you put it into prison for like 40 years. There you go.
But it also doesn't have electricity. I mean, the thing about Donald Trump is he's kind of mean, but he's electric, right? And so when he's on television, you're compelled
He's a big personality.
to follow him
Kind
for a
of
minute.
funny, and he's always touching on something a little bit true. That that's the Trump secret sauce.
And so
basically.
watching him at the Republican convention, I was just sitting there the entire time in my kitchen when I was watching this thing. It's like, this is JD boring. I mean, it's just so not fun. And then they started showing Donald Trump's face. And Donald Trump didn't look like a boss who was taking pleasure in his new employee. He didn't look like a father who was, pleased with his child. He looked like, oh, what did I do?
Maybe even mad at his favorite child.
Because Trump he's a producer. And I think he realized this was not good television, and he had to live with this guy for 3 more months.
Well, and I think the fact that Jennifer Aniston came out and put on her Instagram that, she very much hoped that JD...
Yep, that's also a thing that Jennifer Aniston simply came out and pointed this out, like, this is what this guy said. And I saw Trump face, like, he was also not very happy about his pick. I mean, like, Donald can read the mood in the room very well, like, he can read it very well, and he did not look happy at all with his pick. And from what I heard, that this pick was handed to him by his son, Donald Jr., Trump Jr. So, I mean, even I saw that Trump was really not happy, and it was really visible on his face that he probably knew that this will probably bite him in the ass sometime later. However, there's really nothing he can do now, unless he would find a miraculous way to get this guy out of his VP and put there somebody that he actually wants. It's a bit sad that somebody else picked him the VP, but that's how it works. Like, people choose you your vice president. Rich people choose your presidents. Like, even the presidents, they don't have much freedom now, do they? I wonder if Kamala will be able to pick her own VP, or if the party is going to select her a VP. We'll see. I'm not sure who has a better read on a good vice presidential nominee, if it's the party or if it's Kamala Harris. So, who knows? However, in Trump's case, this was a very big blunder. In Kamala's case, well, it could be better. Who knows? But keep in mind that the Democratic Party has been very delusional and has been dosing a lot of copium, especially in the Biden presidency, and the fact that they even let Biden to go into the primaries to begin with. But we'll see how it develops. Let's continue watching.
Vance never had a female child who couldn't have babies because he was trying to withdraw IVF too, meant that this story in particular cut through the sort of political punditry into the bigger population. And for people who don't care about politics until the week before the election, Jennifer actually saying something hugely influential. She has 50 million followers on Instagram. And we actually, at The Beast, we've got a a childless cat lady power list because there are so many women
At the
who
top
are
of that
proud.
list is Taylor
Yeah.
Swift.
Taylor Swift,
Yeah.
Joyce Carol Oates, who's got many more readers and has written many more books than
Yeah.
J.D. Vance. Martha Stewart has a daughter, but she's got an honorary mention, Karl Lagerfeld.
Fact check the cats.
We fact-checked the cat.
Okay, good.
We've even got the breed of each cat. But he's strangely unable to read the tone because young people now also, there was just new research that came out from the Pew Center this week, actually that young people don't want to have kids
Almost
right
50%.
now.
Yes, that's also case. However, I'm gonna mention something else about the IFV. Yes, like the Republicans or the hardcore of the Republicans, they simply do not want women to have children. They also want them to have husbands. Like, they don't want single mothers. And like finding yourself a ideal partner, it's not fucking easy. It's very hard. A lot of women that turns out to be very miserable and do not really like the way they choose their partner because either they pick their partner and have a child with him in their early 20s when they were not developed enough, when they were running that love sentiment and it turns bad for them. Or in some other case, they simply cannot find an ideal partner because pretty much everybody has some sort of a red flag. And that's the problem. Everybody has a red flag. Like, there's no really ideal partner. So, I mean, you kind of have to go for a compromise. However, how can you be sure you find yourself a good compromise and not a compromise that is going to turn out as a violent husband in some years afterwards, or a weak husband, or a husband that is going to exploit you, or maybe your child? And obviously, even it is fought from women as well, obviously. I mean, a lot of women are definitely having a little bit of higher standards, and I don't mean by, personality-wise. I mean, like, they want their husband to earn, like, 1 million per month. That's a hyperbole, just in case. They want him to have mansions, Bugattis, obviously hyperbole. They want him to be 6 foot 5 feet tall, or however your American measures works. That was a tiny bit of a hyperbole, and this adds to quite a bit of an unrealistic standards. Like, personality should be the first thing you should look forward. Like, you should look towards a partner you have some sort of a synergy with. Obviously, then you spend time together, you talk and talk, on and off. Sometimes you talk much more often, and this process can take up to a year or two. Like, you have to know how this person who you potentially consider to be your partner actually works or actually behaves when he's put under a pressure situation and under a stressful situation, to learn if he has any violent tendencies or anything like this. Because I mean, hey, you would be spending the rest of your life with that person unless you are a cheater person, which in that case you have no sympathy for me. And someone is lowering his or her moan here. That you may hear that. That's not ideal. I'm gonna mute my microphone, but I'm gonna restart this video so you don't hear it too much. So we're gonna keep watching this. Oh yeah, and the children. Yeah, I forgot about the children almost. The children do not want children because they simply cannot afford it. Like, the children cannot, the young cannot even afford their own housing. The housing prices went through the roof. That is one of the reasons why they don't want children. They cannot even afford themselves a good housing. Why would they be starting a family? They want their family to have a good life, not to live from wage to wage. Is this the life you want for your child? Obviously not. Now we're gonna keep watching.
Right.
Almost 50%.
Surprisingly
But this is what
high.
you're mad about. That's exactly what he's
Yeah.
doing.
Right,
Yes.
but he was chosen to just hang around the Great Lakes. And that blue wall that we talked about earlier, he's supposed to be in Pennsylvania. He's supposed to be in Wisconsin. He's supposed to be in Michigan. So that is what they chose J.D. Vance to do, and make sure that wall did not fall.
So look, the talk of replacing him, I think, is a little fanciful, but
Like
you know,
replacing
we just,
a presidential nominee?
Listen, Business Insider did an
replaced.
entire story about Rule 9, which is how the Republicans see it.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike, do you think that, first of all, it wasn't a mistake, and should Republicans roll the dice and try again?
Look, at the end of the day, I don't think the vice presidential pick.
They can try again. I did not know about it. I thought when you nominate your VP pick, then you cannot change it. That would be interesting if they actually change it, and it would be probably a better choice, even though they would seem weaker in the first few days after actually changing the nominees. However, if they would pick somebody strong, then whoever that pick is would make it up. Like, that pick would make it up, and it could theoretically win them the election. So, I mean, yeah, if they can change the nominee, maybe it's not too late. However, it should come from J.D. Vance, or I don't know, they can do a false flag scandal, something like that, to get them off. However, at this point, J.D. Vance is not a beneficial for Republicans, to be completely honest.
Actually matters. I really
Unless it's
don't.
J.D. Vance, and then
No,
I think it
thought
actually does.
even-
It mattered when it was Sarah
I'm not
Palin.
sure that
Yeah,
it.
I think it
I don't
matters.
think that John McCain lost the race because of Sarah Palin.
Great.
I think the last time it maybe mattered was 1960 with Johnson and swaying Texas to Kennedy. So this is great for late night television. This is great for our conversations. But at the end of the day, I don't know that it matters. It probably is upsetting to President Trump if he feels like, as you put it, a producer made a bad decision. But it's not going to affect the outcome of the election.
Harris, though. I mean, it seems like it's.
But here's how the Sarah Palin choice mattered. It mattered because it was a window into John McCain's decision making.
Yes.
And that he was running on country first, and here he did not put the country first. He put politics first. And so here's Donald Trump, who we're ultimately electing somebody with some judgment. And the person he chose was a weird person who thinks the rest of us who aren't having kids at 20
Palin
years
is the
old
exception
are
that
doing
proves.
something more.
But it also matters because Donald Trump is 78 and he looked, we saw that he was fragile, obviously, after being shot at. And he may well have post-traumatic stress syndrome, which actually 90% of people who've been shot at do. So not surprising, but he's 78 years old. It's possible that the vice president becomes president. It's not fanciful to think.
And it's also just this, again, I know conservative voters in these states that he is meant to speak to.
Right.
And they're going to church and Bible study, and they're praying for their friends who can't have kids or in their third round of IVF or are desperate to adopt. This is not resonating. And the fact that he is having to explain it and is defending it, instead of just backing away from it to end this news cycle,
Well, let's talk
I
about
think
that.
shows that they are
That's-
very keenly unaware of how it's landing inside their own house.
That's exactly. I mean, look, this is something he said how many years ago?
2021.
Okay.
It's becoming increasingly more loud. I cannot do anything about this, unfortunately, but I'll try to do my best. So it's also because he probably was never embroiled in any controversy, and he simply does not know how to handle this controversy. Like, he was in army for some time, I don't know for how long. Then he went to the law school where he met his wife now. He did not learn how to handle such scandals. He was taught how to be a lawyer, most likely. So he does not know when to shut up and when to just backtrack from some of his things he said, or just said, alright, that was stupid, I view it differently now, it's been 2 years, I have a different views, there we go. However, when you start explaining it, then you create problem. Then you create a problem for the Republicans and for yourself as well. Because that message he said there does not resonate with many voters. And that's a problem. Like, he should have been able to actually just backpedal, simply say, I view it differently now. There you go. And we will not come back to this anymore. Maybe the Democrats will try to pull this card, but hey, you will simply always say the same bland answer, period. However, the way he handled this is not ideal.
So, well, before he was elected,
Before
He said it today again.
But he's just doubled down
exactly,
He said it again.
exactly. So this is where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
He said this before he was elected to the United States Senate, but now he's doubling down. At some point, in public life, you make mistakes. You
Right.
say something wrong. And then how do you deal with that going forward?
Not
To
if
me,
you're Trump's running.
well,
mate.
that's
Do that.
that.
You're
I
Donald
think you
Trump's
can.
running mate.
I actually do think that you can, but this is an area in which he really needs to figure out what his voice is and how he's going to do it. But the real mistake for me was how they're handling it now, not the fact that he was trying to be funny in a weird way
To Tucker Carlson,
to
right?
Tucker Carlson
Well, even
years
Tucker
ago.
Carlson, Tucker Carlson looked absolutely gobsmacked that he was saying this too. It wasn't like Tucker was leaning in, which he sometimes
look,
does.
there's a
He
whole
looked
cadre on the
bewildered.
right that they believe that the population replacement is the most important thing, and all the rest of us here on planet Earth, as to your point, know plenty of people who have kids and know that. But by the grace of God, they may not have had children, and don't judge people for not having kids. Like, that's just not a thing you do in 2024.
Well,
But wait a minute, there's a-
20% of women don't have children, and 11% of women have tremendous difficulties having children. So it's unclear who he's trying to speak to here.
And God forbid we talk about the men, maybe like me, who waited into their 40s to have children, right? And so nobody worries about, in this conversation, about the fact that like people like George Washington didn't have any biological children of his own. He's not attacking him for someone who shouldn't have a say in American life. And I think that's the part that he doesn't get, that people are making all kinds of choices in their lives that he's not actually representing when he's speaking up in public.
Oh, last few things I'm gonna say, because you probably hear the background noises. Yep, that's a good point that, George Washington also did not have any biological children. That's kind of a good point when these people often talk about George Washington, about the founding fathers, and then you have George who simply did not want any children. So people make decisions. If they don't want to have children, it's their decision. You should respect that. And the way the Republican or the hardcore Republican Party would handle this thing, and I worry about it a lot for the sake of the American women, is that they would force American women, and let's be real, probably more specifically white women, to force them to have children. And if they would not obey, well, they would probably take away their rights and force them to live in some sort of a breeding houses. That's also possible. Like, I read some of that Project 2025 stuff. They really want to put an end to the migration. They want to reduce the migration quite a bit. They are not just saying strong borders. Honestly, if they could choose, they would probably, let's face it, I mean, most of the people who come to the US probably are gonna vote for the Democrats, or a good portion, and the Republicans want the people who come into the US to vote for the Republicans, obviously. That's how it works. That's how the two-party system works. However, they know that people like Black people, Latinos even a little bit, Asians simply vote more for the Democrats. And how do you change that? Oh yeah, you're gonna force white women to have more children. Realistically, it's not going to help, because those children will remember that they are a result of a forced impregnation, most likely, unless the Republicans indoctrinate them. Who knows? Like, we live in a very complicated era at the moment, and we do not know how it's going to turn out. And there's so many voices in my background, I fucking hate it. So this is everything I wanted to talk about, and